Imagine waking up in a world where there is no such thing as 8 a.m. No alarms, no deadlines, no school bells, no train schedules, no countdowns. For most of human history, people did not know what time it was. They only knew where the sun stood in the sky. Then, an invention quietly appeared. An invention so powerful it didn't just measure time, it controlled it. It decided when people woke up, when they worked, when they prayed, when they slept, when armies marched, when factories roared to life, and eventually when the entire world moved together as one. Today we glance at a clock without giving it a second thought. But behind every ticking second lies a story of kings, monks, inventors, revolutions, and ordinary people whose lives were forever changed by humanity's relentless attempt to command something that had never belonged to us. This is the forgotten story of the clock and how it came to control human time. Long before the first gears ever turned, time was something people felt, not something they measured. The first rays of sunlight spilling across a valley told farmers it was time to rise. The smell of evening fires drifting through villages meant another day had ended. Birdsong announced the morning long before any bell could. Shadows stretching across dusty roads acted as silent guides for travelers. Life flowed with nature. No one asked, "What time is it?" Instead, they asked, "Has the sun reached the hill?" Or, "Has the moon risen yet?" Across ancient Egypt, workers building towering pyramids watched the movement of the stars. Along the banks of the Nile, priests carefully observed the heavens, believing the movements of celestial bodies revealed the will of the gods. In Mesopotamia, scribes marked seasons by watching the skies. In China, astronomers devoted their lives to predicting the heavens because the emperor's authority depended on harmony between Earth and the cosmos. Time was sacred, but it was also unpredictable. Clouds could hide the sun, storms could obscure the stars. Winter days seemed painfully short. Summer afternoons stretched endlessly. Human civilization was growing more complex. Trade expanded, cities became crowded, empires reached farther than ever before. People needed more than sunlight. They needed certainty, and that need would begin one of history's greatest technological journeys. Long before metal gears and ringing bells, humanity's first clocks cast no sound at all. They cast shadows. Somewhere in ancient Egypt, nearly 3,500 years ago, a simple stone pillar stood beneath the blazing desert sun. To most people, it looked ordinary, but to priests, builders, and astronomers, it was extraordinary. As the sun climbed higher, the pillar's shadow slowly crept across carefully marked lines etched into the ground. Morning, midday, afternoon. The Earth itself became the mechanism. The sun became the moving hand. These early sundials transformed cities. Builders could coordinate massive construction projects. Religious ceremonies began at consistent moments. Markets opened with greater order. The movement of the heavens had been translated into something humans could understand. Yet sundials carried one enormous weakness. They were useless whenever darkness arrived. At night, time vanished. Clouds could erase it, rain could hide it. Fog swallowed it completely. Civilizations needed another solution, one that could continue working even when the sky refused to cooperate. That solution flowed not through gears, but through water. In quiet temple chambers, clay vessels slowly dripped water from one container into another. Each drop represented another passing moment. Known today as water clocks, these remarkable inventions appeared across Egypt, Greece, Persia, India, and China in different forms. Inside dimly lit rooms, priests watched the water level descend. Judges timed legal speeches. Military commanders measured guard shifts. Scholars calculated astronomical observations. For the first time, humanity had found a way to measure time independent of the sun. It was an astonishing breakthrough. Yet even water had its flaws. Cold weather slowed the flow. Heat sped it up. Containers leaked. Sediment clogged tiny openings. Every solution seemed to create another problem. Still, humanity refused to stop searching, because as civilizations became larger, time became increasingly valuable. And soon, an entirely new force would reshape the history of the clock. Not emperors, not merchants, but monks. Picture a lonely monastery perched high on a windswept hillside in medieval Europe. Thick stone walls shield its inhabitants from icy winds. Candles flicker inside narrow corridors. The scent of wax, parchment, and damp stone fills the air. Outside, darkness blankets the countryside. Inside, life follows a rhythm unlike anything the surrounding villages have ever known. The monks do not wake when they feel rested. They wake when they are summoned. Long before sunrise, a bell echoes across the valley. Its deep, resonating sound cuts through the silence. One by one, hooded figures rise from wooden beds. No complaints, no hesitation. Prayer cannot wait. Hours later, another bell rings, then another, and another, each one calling the community to prayer, work, meals, study, and rest. To outsiders, it seems almost supernatural. How do these monks always know the right moment? The answer lies hidden within the monastery itself. Early mechanical timekeeping was born not out of commerce or warfare, but from devotion. Monastic life demanded strict schedules. Missing a prayer was more than poor discipline, it was a spiritual failing. The need to observe the canonical hours drove craftsmen to build increasingly reliable mechanisms that could mark time consistently, regardless of weather or daylight. These early clocks were crude by modern standards. Huge iron frames filled small rooms. Heavy stone weights hung from thick ropes. As gravity pulled the weights downward, gears slowly turned. A simple mechanism released them one tooth at a time. Tick, pause, tick, pause. The sound echoed through silent halls. For perhaps the first time in history, people heard time instead of merely seeing it. The clock did not tire, it did not sleep. It demanded obedience. Villagers living near monasteries gradually began organizing their own lives around those bells. Farmers left for the fields after hearing them. Merchants opened their stalls when they rang. Children learned that certain bells meant meals, others meant worship, and still others signaled the end of the day. Without realizing it, society was changing. Not because nature had changed, but because the clock had begun to replace it. By the 14th century, the sound of time no longer belonged only to monasteries. It belonged to entire cities. Across Europe, massive stone towers began rising above crowded rooftops. They stood higher than churches, marketplaces, and noble houses, their silhouettes visible from miles away. Inside these towers, blacksmiths, engineers, and craftsmen assembled enormous iron machines unlike anything the world had seen. Their gears were as large as wagon wheels. Their weights were heavier than several grown men. Every moving part had to be forged by hand. Children weave between the crowds. Blacksmiths hammer glowing metal. Cartwheels rattle across uneven cobblestones. Then the bell rings. Conversation pauses. Heads turn instinctively toward the tower. Everyone understands its command. The baker knows when to prepare the next batch of bread. The town guards know when to change shifts. Court officials know when legal hearings begin. Merchants know when the market closes. The city's rhythm no longer depends on the rising or setting of the sun. It depends on the machine above their heads. Even kings recognized the power of these clocks. Owning a magnificent public clock was not simply practical, it was political. A towering clock announced wealth. It demonstrated engineering brilliance. It told neighboring cities, we are organized, we are prosperous, we control time itself. Some rulers spent fortunes constructing elaborate clock towers decorated with moving statues, painted dials, and astronomical displays that tracked not only the hours, but the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. Crowds gathered daily to watch mechanical figures emerge as bells chimed. To many people, these machines seemed almost magical. Some believed they possessed hidden knowledge. Others whispered that only divine inspiration, or perhaps something darker, could explain such precision. Stories spread of mysterious clockmakers who disappeared after completing their masterpieces, ensuring they could never build an even greater clock for a rival city. Whether true or not, the legends revealed something important. People no longer saw clocks as ordinary machines. They saw them as symbols of power. The Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, the rise of factories, the standardization of time through railways, the creation of global time zones, the invention of pocket watches and wristwatches, and finally, the digital age transformed the clock from a public instrument into a constant personal companion. What had once been measured by shadows, bells, and the changing seasons became measured down to the second. Today, nearly every moment of our lives is organized by time. We wake because an alarm commands us. We rush because a meeting begins at a specific hour. We measure our work, our travel, our celebrations, and even our rest by the clock. The technology has changed. The habit has not. Every generation has tried to bring order to the unstoppable flow of moments. And every generation has discovered the same truth. Time never slows. It never bargains. It never waits. The clock simply reminds us of that fact. Every passing second is both a gift and something that can never be reclaimed. Look around your home. There is probably a clock within arm's reach. It may hang silently on a wall, glow softly from a bedside table, or exist only as numbers on a screen. It seems ordinary, almost invisible, yet hidden inside that simple object is one of the greatest stories ever told. A story that began with shadows stretching across ancient stone, continued through dripping water and forgotten temples, echoed in monastery bells before sunrise, rose above medieval cities in towering clock towers, powered factories during the Industrial Revolution, connected nations through railways, and eventually found its way into every pocket, every wrist, and every smartphone on Earth. The clock did more than tell us what time it was. It reshaped civilization. It synchronized empires. It transformed work. It redefined discipline. It changed how humanity lived, traveled, communicated, and dreamed. But perhaps its greatest achievement was also its greatest paradox. The more precisely we learned to measure time, the more precious every second became. And maybe that's why the quiet ticking of a clock still captures our attention today. Not because it reminds us what hour it is, but because it reminds us that every moment passes only once. History is never truly gone. Sometimes it hangs quietly on the wall, ticking beside us every single day. If you enjoyed this journey through the forgotten history of one of humanity's most influential inventions, consider subscribing for more cinematic documentaries uncovering the hidden stories behind the everyday objects we rarely think about. And before you go, tell us in the comments, which ordinary household object should we uncover next?